Proverbs 19 verse 17. He that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto the Lord, and that which he hath given will he pay him again.
Question. Pastor Wind, you mentioned the power of observation. Reminds me of when you taught strategists how to use strategy. You have shared this mind. You mentioned at the time, we need to keep an eye on the battlefield, because the battlefield is changing very much. And before we start the game, you had prepared a detailed notebook for us. In it, carefully explain each terrain, weapons use, and instructions. It can be seen that your observation of everything is highly subtle, to a degree we didn't expect. Even when we sometimes don't think about it, pastors are very attentive. Over the years, I've watched pastors lead entire churches, even amid every battlefield and every war zone. Pastors always give us a great sense of security, and it can easily lead us into that situation. It's all because of your powers of observation, helped us analyze everything beforehand. May I ask the degree to which you can be so meticulous and observant? Is it because you were already in the midst of a war when you established the church? You have to be aware of God's every move. Only with such a strong observation ability can you win every game.
In fact, on that question, it has nothing to do with the circumstances in which I started the church. It's about the humanity of man and the divinity of God. There is a significant deviation. Basically, when the human nature is fed, it tends to look inward. It means focusing on your own feelings, focus on your own benefits, enjoyment, and mood. It's human nature to look inward. As long as there is enough food, abundance, and pleasure, people are naturally obsessed with it. As soon as many people come into contact with the iPhone or PSP game console, this will also happen. In fact, this is the internal phenomenon produced by human nature. But is the same true of divinity? It's not. By contrast, God's divinity tends to look outward. To put it another way, human nature is undevelopable, but the divinity of God can evolve. He will not be inward-looking, only stay on one thing. And will never be restricted by a framework. However, you can see that the sects throughout the ages, most are confined by a framework. That's right. This is human nature. When these sects come together, they naturally tend to protect themselves. No more development. Even as the leader develops, but the follower is content only with pleasure and self-sufficiency, instead of moving forward. This, of course, is a pre-existing characteristic of human nature. Inward vision. The older you get, the more likely you are to have this trait. They rely on all their past experiences, to assert oneself and to inhabit this narrow frame. But in contrast, the divinity of God continues to develop. One of these features is observation and reflection. They are generally from a reference. Only by achieving a higher level of scrutiny than usual, so that you can achieve what I say, self-inspiration and self-examination. If we are inspired to copy the way we observe, it is a way of stepping outside the inherent framework of the lower classes. However, in a high-level way, it's not just the word self that does it. Among them, there are significant differences that you cannot imagine. Examination and self-examination, inspired and self-inspired. It's not what we think, it's just a literal difference. It's the difference between God and man. To give just one example, if Pastor Wind does anything or says anything, can turn something bad into something amazing, this is something you've never seen before. You won't have the same explosion even if you do the same thing. And the reason is, this phenomenon of turning something bad into something magical, with this level of self-enlightenment and self-awareness, by no means common. In fact, the gap is very far. In other words, developable character and undevelopable character, it is the difference between the human and the divine. So, as you have witnessed, for years, I led the church, without pushing you too hard, try to keep you from being stuck in the old framework. Instead, it is constantly evolving. Proverbs 19 verse 17. He that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto the Lord, and that which he hath given will he pay him again.
We make our stand, whatever cost. We won't lay down on heaven, this soil. Redeemer, grant us a miracle. Show me all your true colors. Now, it's not by might and not by sight. Deep down we know our bloodline is royal. Victorious Spirit of God, arise. These are all our true colors. Now, this is our twilight, the end and beginning. Out of the shadow, a legend is reborn this day.